I'm Indy Neidell.
And I'm Burns.
And this is the Baseball History Time Machine.
Quality never goes out of style.
I don't recognize that one.
That's Levi's.
Levi's. I should have got that. We're stealing slogans from bigger and bigger companies.
I wouldn't say we're stealing. I would phrase it or frame it as borrowing.
It's funny you say that. The last time I saw my little brother alive, he passed away earlier this year, as you know, was when my wife and I were in Houston early last year. Yeah. And the last day we were there, we were having some wine with my brother before we were heading to the airport to fly home. And he had finished his glass, and I still had a little left in mine. And he leaned over and just grabbed it and drank the last gulp. And I said, "Hey, you stole my wine." And he looked at me and he smiled. He goes, "I didn't steal it. I took it."
I mean, to be fair, that's pretty funny, though.
Yeah, he was a funny guy.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
But it's like what you said about the slogans. We're not stealing. We're taking.
Was he a baseball fan?
Not much of a fan, but he enjoyed going to games. And he went to a few with my mom, every year.
I mean, your mom is a real fan.
She might be more of a baseball fan than me even. My mom loves sports in general, but baseball has been her favorite since she came to the States in 1964.
She's from Britain, right?
Well, she's American now, but yeah, she grew up southwest of London in Surrey, though she never saw England until she was 5.
Why not?
She was born in Egypt in 1940 after World War II had started.
Wow.
See, my English grandpa was superintendent of schools for the British Dominion of Egypt, and he met Grandma there, and they got married in the 1930s.
That's insane. I did not know that. Was Grandma from Egypt?
No, Grandma was English as well, but she was teaching in Egypt when they met.
Okay.
Anyhow, with the war on, Grandpa ended up in the RAF in North Africa, and Mom, Grandma, and my uncle were evacuated to South Africa, where they lived until the war ended.
So you have a little bit of South African in you.
Perhaps I do, Burns. Perhaps I do.
I mean, I had my granddad's brothers, the 2 older brothers. They lied about their age to go fight.
Okay.
In North Africa.
Yeah.
But not as anything serious. They were like munition guys, and I can't remember what the other one was. Like one was a dude who worked with munitions and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other guys was just like part of the war effort. I'm not sure if they ever saw any action. I need to.
Oh, Grandpa saw plenty of action. So.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. But that's awesome.
He said he kept getting promoted because everybody kept dying.
Oh my God, that's so bleak. That's such British humor as well.
Oh yeah,
that's very British humor.
And when I was a kid and Grandpa, if I do something stupid, he'd be, "You silly ass." So okay, but right. Let's get to baseball.
What are we talking about today?
We are going to finish off the Sluggers of the 1970s miniseries because I want to get that out of the way, and I'm sorry I didn't finish it in season 1.
Are there still many guys to talk about?
There were a lot of sluggers in the 1970s, well, compared to like previous decades, like the 40s that we did.
Yeah.
But there were sluggers, I'm not going to cover all of them, but there were sluggers who won MVPs in the 1970s that I have not covered, and that's what I want to get to today.
I mean, that's kind of important, so let's do it.
I already covered some of the early 70s MVP sluggers, like Dick Allen, Johnny Bench, and Reggie Jackson. But then we get to 1974, and the MVPs were Jeff Burroughs in the American League and Steve Garvey in the National League.
You're going to talk about both of them?
Not today. I have another idea for when to tackle Garvey. Okay. I mean, he did hit as many as 33 homers in a season, which, to be fair, would have been enough to lead the AL in both 71 and 73. Yeah. So sure, he was a slugger. Yeah. But he never slugged over 500 in a season, though he did, and I looked it up, have a run of 498, 499, and 497 in 1977, 78, and 79.
Wow. A model of consistency.
That is a great way to describe Steve Garvey.
You're going to talk about Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff Burroughs, yeah. Burroughs hit 301 in 1974, which was 8th in the American League, and he hit 25 homers, which was 4th, and he hit 30 in 1973, which was second then to Reggie Jackson's 32. But the big reason he won the MVP in 1974 was his league-leading 118 RBI.
Was the voting close?
Not especially, although 6 players did get at least one first-place vote, which is unusual.
And who were they?
Burroughs was first with 10 first-place votes. Okay. Then came 3 of the 3-peating World Series champion Oakland Athletics from second to fourth. Joe Rudy, Sal Bando, and Reggie Jackson. And they got 5, 3, and 1 first-place votes. Okay. And then Burroughs' Rangers teammate Fergie Jenkins, who got 3. And then Oakland's Catfish Hunter, who got 1. But Jenkins and Hunter had identical 25 and 12 seasons, though Hunter's ERA was a bunch lower, and the A's won the World Series, so he won the Cy Young Award.
So wait, the top 6 was only the A's and the Rangers?
Yeah, think of that. Imagine that happens this year. If the top 6 in the MVP are the A's and the Rangers. I can't see that happening somehow.
No,
But the A's did win, they won the series, but they won the AL West, and the Rangers were also in the AL West and finished 5 games behind them.
Was it a close race towards the end?
Not really. The Rangers never came within 4 games like the last 2 months of the season. Well, 4 is not that far away.
That's not far.
But they never got closer, and they were mostly 7 or 8 games back. A couple more interesting things
Okay.
about the 1974 AL MVP voting. Rod Carew, who won his 4th batting title and his 3rd straight, hit .364, which was the highest AL batting average since Ted Williams hit .388 in 1957. Wow. Carew also led the major leagues with 218 hits and a .433 on base percentage, but he did not get a single first place vote for MVP, nor did Dick Allen, who led the league in homers and the majors in slugging.
Now, hold on. That does not sound right or fair. Is there some weird category that we're not aware of?
Well, it's interesting, because Jackson won the MVP the year before, and Carew would win it in a few years. But yeah, I know it seems a little odd that to be that big a leader and not get it. Well, it is what it is.
That doesn't make sense.
So now I'm going to spin you the Jeff Burroughs yarn.
I'm all ears.
Burroughs had real power.
Okay.
And he was the first expansion team player to win the MVP. His Sabre bio actually begins with a quote from Ted Williams that Burroughs was the greatest young hitter he'd ever seen.
That's pretty high praise.
Yeah.
Why don't we remember him today? Why haven't we heard of this guy?
Well, there's a few reasons, actually, and it's mainly career ups and downs, which I'm going to get to.
Okay.
Now, Burroughs was a high school baseball, football, and track star, but knee surgery left him really with just baseball as his future. The Senators got him as first pick in the 1969 amateur draft. Despite that, other than his hitting, he was called extremely subpar in every other department. But, hitting can make up for a lot. And he signed with an $88,000 bonus.
Okay.
Now, he tore up the rookie league, and the Senators wanted to bring him up, but manager Ted Williams, that was his manager, right, said he thought a player should have 1,200 to 2,000 at-bats in the minors before coming up to the majors.
How many minor league at-bats did Ted Williams have?
1,089.
Guess he changed his mind over the years.
Well, yeah, obviously so. It seems a little double standard there.
Sure.
But he's Ted Williams. Hey.
He can do what he wants.
Well, Senators owner Bob Short pressured Williams into bringing Burroughs up in 1970, but in 6 games he did not impress.
Okay.
Now, in 1971, a feud started between Short and Williams over Burroughs. In spring training, right, they had to install wire netting to save on the cost of all the balls Burroughs kept hitting out of the park.
That's madness.
But Williams won the battle and Burroughs went down to Denver. But he hit well enough at Denver for Short to win the next battle and bring him up mid-season.
How did he do in his time down in Denver?
Well, he did great in his time in Denver, so they brought him back up. And when he came up, he did all right. And nothing like he would 2 years later, but in 59 games, managed an OPS plus of 100.
How old was he at this point?
He's just 20, the youngest guy on the team.
That's pretty good, though. That's like...
20-year-old, yeah.
That's really good for a 20-year-old.
Now, he played winter ball in Venezuela after the season. And he was having a great spring and was definitely going to be the starting left fielder in 1972 for what were now the Texas Rangers. Washington moved to Texas.
Yes, that's right.
But he hurt his back and went on the DL, and he didn't play a game until late May. And he never really got on track because of his back, and he only hit 185 for the season in just 22 games.
Based on those numbers, you wouldn't be guessing that greatness was just up ahead for him.
Well, his new manager, Whitey Herzog, saw greatness.
What happened to Williams?
That feud between him and the owner happened, and he was out. And he made an enemy of Burroughs, too. But the Rangers lost 100 games in 1972 and finished last. So whatever the case, Williams might likely be out.
I mean, hating on Williams and creating a feud with one of the greatest hitters of all time does not seem like a smart business move.
But he wasn't necessarily one of the greatest managers of all time. Well, he's a great hitting coach.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, we have Mike Epstein and his school to thank for that as well.
Yeah, of course. All that stuff, yeah.
All of that is there.
Mike Epstein.
And Herzog began managing the team in 1973.
Yeah, and it was the first major league stop on his Hall of Fame managing career. But he didn't finish the season before getting sacked, since the Rangers were on their way to being worse than in 1972.
But Burroughs came good.
Yeah, he sure did.
Okay, how good was he?
Well, that's the year he finished second to Reggie Jackson in the AL in homers. However, he did not start well. He hit 241 in April and just 215 in May, and he had only 6 season homers as June began. But then he got really hot in June in terms of average, and then hit 22 homers in July, August, and September.
Jeez.
And at one point, he had 3 grand slams in 10 days, and the first one was the first one in Rangers history.
Wow.
Now, here's something really interesting, and I'm going to quote his Sabre bio now. This is the quote.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Remarkably, the consensus of coaches and managers was that the swirling right field winds in Arlington robbed Burroughs of an additional 14 to 16 homers. Though he soon grew out of it, in 1973, Burroughs became known as much for helmet-throwing tantrums as immense power. Those long power rallies in the wind make it almost impossible at home, Burroughs complained. I'd better not get my hands on any dynamite because I'll blow this park into the next state. During the offseason, the Rangers tried to remedy the situation by moving the fences 10 feet closer. They fended off numerous trade queries for the bespectacled slugger, including an aggressive and lengthy pursuit by Boston. Local news media and radio television personnel dubbed Burroughs the club's outstanding player, while new manager Billy Martin identified him as untouchable.
Okay, so Billy Martin took over after Whitey Herzog, after Ted Williams. That's some marquee of names if I've ever read something like that's crazy.
Spoiler, Burroughs gets another Hall of Fame manager soon enough. But we'll get to that. But, okay, Martin, unlike Herzog, was already established after his Twins won their division in 1969, and his Tigers did the same in 1972.
And then Burroughs won the MVP.
He had a stellar year, but it could have been better.
How so?
Okay, you've heard the story of Cleveland's ill-advised 10-cent beer night, June 4th, 1974.
Oh, yes, but how is that even relevant?
See, the week before it, at the end of May, the Rangers had hosted the Indians, and that game went out of control, and there was a benches-clearing brawl and hit batters and lots of bad blood. Now, put a pin in that, right?
Okay.
The Indians were 12th out of 12 teams in the AL in attendance in 1973.
Okay.
And as 74 rolled along, they were trying to do things to boost it and make a little cash. Beer usually costs 65 cents at Cleveland Stadium, but 10-cent beer might fill the stands.
Was there, please tell me, was there a purchase limit?
You could only buy 6 beers per purchase, but there was no limit on the number of purchases.
Wait, see, that started well.
Hang on, because here's something that people don't know, that people always leave out or forget to write in the beer night. Okay, the Indians had nickel beer night in 1971 after both the Astros and Brewers had Dime Beer Day, right? These were days, not nights. For our non-American fans, a nickel is 5 cents and a dime is 10 cents. So the Indians won up the Astros and Brewers 10-cent beer night 3 years earlier with 5-cent beer night. Not only did a 12-ounce beer cost just 5 cents for a beer, but kids under 18 coming to the game got Indians batting helmets.
That sounds like a really good deal for the fans, at least.
And that night, the nickel beers were not at the regular concession stands, but at a few special ones, right?
All right.
So that was July 5th, 1971, the day after Family Day, when, as an opening treat, the Indians players played a softball game against their wives.
I would love to have seen that.
Me too, man. I'd like to see that now.
Yeah.
Even the 1971 Indians against their wives. I'd like to. Doesn't have to be a team now.
Exactly.
But nickel beer night went really well. So who thought there would be any trouble now in 1974? But take that pin out of the benches clearing brawl a few days ago in Arlington, and you get a pretty rowdy crowd coming to the game, angry at the Rangers.
So how many people were at this game?
25,134, which was the best crowd of the season so far, except for a doubleheader on May 19th against the Tigers, which drew just under 50,000 fans. I looked this up.
Okay.
As the season went along after this, and the Indians contended for a big part of it, and they were in first place as late as July 7th.
Oh, wow.
So they had other bigger attendance days.
Yeah.
Hey, but I'm speaking of May 19th, 1974. You know what else happened May 19th, 1974?
What?
You're going to like this. On May 19th, 1974, the Philadelphia Flyers beat the Boston Bruins 1-0 in Game 6 to win the Stanley Cup. The first team from the 1967 Great Expansion to do so.
The Broad Street Bullies, right?
Yes,
the Broad Street Bullies. Yeah, that team was menacing. They were marauding because they would just beat everybody to a pulp.
I'm surprised I know that.
Are you really going to sidetrack into NHL history? I mean, I love the NHL. I'm a big
maybe
Blackhawks
one day,
guy,
but I'm not, because I want to get back to Jeff Burroughs, but I have to get back to the 10-cent beer night in order to do that, right? This is like that MLB Threads thing. Right? The crowd is rowdy to start with, and then soon enough rowdy and drunk. And then in the fourth, things start to get nasty. Okay. Now, after the big brawl the week before in Arlington, the press had been playing things up, including running a cartoon in the Cleveland Plain Dealer newspaper of the Indians' Chief Wahoo wearing boxing gloves captioned, "Be ready for anything."
Oh, boy.
The Rangers take a 5-1 lead, but there are incidents. In fact, there's so many accounts of this game online. But if you just look at the game's Wikipedia page really quick, it'll tell you a few of them that were first printed in an ESPN article 18 years ago.
Okay.
Fergie Jenkins, pitching for Texas, takes a line drive to the stomach, and the crowd starts chanting, "Hit him again, hit him again." A woman runs out to the Indians' on-deck circle, flashes her boobs, tries to kiss the umpire. A Tom Grieve homer prompts a naked man to run onto the field and slide into second. A father and son run onto the outfield and moon the crowd.
This sounds like a fun game.
Well, I don't think the fireworks people brought to the game going off in the stands were fun, or the ones thrown into the Rangers' bullpen.
What?
Now, Mike Hargrove, the Rangers' first baseman, probably did not enjoy being pelted with hot dogs either.
Jeez.
Jenkins was spiked, not on purpose, well, maybe not on purpose, and he had to leave the game. And in the ninth inning, the Indians tied the game at 5-all, and that is when a drunk 19-year-old ran onto the field and tried to steal Jeff Burroughs' cap. Burroughs gave him a kick, but Billy Martin from the dugout thought Burroughs was being attacked, so the Rangers ran out to defend him armed with bats.
Jeez.
This caused the crowd, many armed with seats they've ripped up or pulled out the metal folding seats, or clubs made from parts of upholstered seats, to storm the field. A couple hundred of them surrounded the Rangers, whose lives may actually have been in danger.
This is insane.
Well, Cleveland skipper Ken Aspromonte has the Indians grab bats and go out on the field to protect the Rangers and get them out of danger. And they really are in danger. A Cleveland reliever was even hit in the head by a metal folding chair thrown from the crowd, right? The teams managed to fight their way off the field and lock themselves in the clubhouses. The umpire forfeits the game to Texas, and then he gets hit by a rock and part of a seat. For another 20 minutes, the rioting goes on, and guess what? The Indians announcers continue announcing the riot they're watching. They're just announcing what people are doing, announcing the riot play by play as it happens.
That's good form.
That's
good
it.
form.
I know Herb Score was one of the announcers. I don't remember who the other one was. But a reporter trying to interview drunk fans at the field got punched in the face by two different people. The police finally arrive and restored order.
This is mental.
And 2 weeks later, the Indians have another 10-cent beer night.
No.
But this time, see, they don't tell you this in the stories about the 5-cent beer night and the Astros and Brewers. Yeah. They just say, oh, what a terrible idea. The Indians had another one 2 weeks later with 200 police present, 2 cups per person limit at the cheaper price. 41,848 fans came for that one. So every time you see in a Facebook group about how stupid the 10-cent beer idea was, the Indians were not the first, and it was just the one night that got out of hands. They should have had some security. Jeez. And now, here's what all that has to do with Jeff Burroughs, other than someone trying to steal his cap. Burroughs had been hitting .332 before that first beer game. But he got a jammed thumb in the mayhem and then hit .157 for the rest of the month. To be clear, he never claimed the thumb was the reason. I'm just pointing out that it may very well have been the reason.
How did he hit for the season?
After a great September bringing him back up, he finished at .301, which was still 10th in the league, but Rod Carew was over 60 points ahead.
I like that Carew didn't just push high averages like Tony Gwynn would later. It's that he did them in an era where averages in general were a lot lower.
Yeah. You know, both Carew and Gwynn had one really low average league leading thing. Gwynn once led the league at .313. Oh, right, yeah, okay, but you know he was hitting .394 as well. But Carew led the AL at just .318 in 1972. Here's a bit of a mind-blowing Carew stat for you. Okay. Despite playing in a low offense era, the 350 plus seasons he had, 1973, 74, 75, were the first time anyone had 3 straight 350 seasons since guess who?
Ted Williams?
Nope, he never did it more than twice in a row.
Stan Musial?
Nope, the same. And this will surprise you. This surprised me too. I looked this up, and
Okay.
this would have been maybe 4th or 5th on my guessing list.
Okay.
Joe DiMaggio was actually the last player before Rod Carew to have 3 straight 350 seasons, which he did in 1939, 40, and 41, winning the batting title the first 2 of those seasons. Those were, though, the only 3 times DiMaggio ever topped 350.
That's really, really good trivia. Who's done it since Carew in the 1970s?
Wade Boggs did it for 4 straight seasons in the 80s.
Yeah.
Tony Gwynn for 5 in the 90s, and Larry Walker for 3 also in the 90s. That's all I know for sure. Maybe someone else, but I don't think someone else. But here's another trivium, a Carew trivium, I like the singular,
Okay.
that I may have mentioned before, but I'm not sure. In 1969, the year he won his first batting title, Rod Carew stole home 7 times.
7 times in one season.
Yeah.
Did he steal a lot of bases in general that season?
Nope, 19 total.
And more of them, a third of them were steals at home.
Yeah, and one of those times, he actually stole 2nd, then 3rd, and then home.
What's the single season record for steals at home?
Ty Cobb did it 8 times in a season once. The thing is, Carew had 7 already by just July 16th. And Carew himself, in his 1979 autobiography, says he got called out a month later trying again, which he says was a blown call, and that would have tied the... He says he was safe, and it would have tied the record. But that was actually the last chance he got for the season.
My question is, how does one get good at stealing a home in that fashion? Because...
Well, for Carew, it involved... Billy Martin, his manager with the 69 Twins.
Billy Martin again.
Like a bad penny. Carew writes, okay, this is a quote. I also added a new wrinkle to my baseball repertoire at Orlando in the spring of 1969, stealing home. Billy Martin and I talked about my being more aggressive on the bases. Although I stole a lot of bases in the minors, I had stolen only 5 and 12 in my first 2 seasons with the Twins. He thought the team should put more pressure on opponents than we had. He said I could use my speed to my advantage in a game situation in which we needed a run and the guys weren't hitting. I had stolen home once before in the minors. Billy worked with me for hours on stealing home. He suggested I take a slow walking lead instead of the lead in which you come to a stop. How far I should lead depended on how far the third baseman was playing off the bag, and whether the pitcher took a stretch or a windup. That walking lead was essential. You'd have momentum already started towards home. We had it timed to the split second. If a pitcher wound up instead of pitching from a stretch and took 6 beats from the time he began his windup to his release, we determined that I ought to make it home safely. We also had the batters practice getting in the catcher's way without being called for interference. As long as you give the hitter the sign and he flashes it back to you, Billy said, then he should know that on the next pitch you're coming and he shouldn't swing. Ideally, the batter is right-handed and he ought to be trying to protect the plate and obscure the catcher's vision a little bit. Billy said, and you can't be afraid of being thrown out because that's going to happen occasionally. You have to do it recklessly.
That's a lot of details, like the mechanics that they have like gone through to like figure this out, and like the minute details.
You're starting to learn how Billy Martin was. I mean, he was an asshole as a guy, but as a manager, you know.
Recklessly, oh boy, he was reckless.
Yeah, he sure was. Here's another fun, as long as I'm talking about stealing home, here's another fun stealing home trivium.
Okay.
Vic Power stole home twice in one game in 1958. Still the last person to do that. But here's the real kicker. You know how many stolen bases Vic Power had that season?
No idea.
3.
3 for one season, and 2 of them were steals at home.
In one game.
In one, I don't have a word for that. Who the heck is Vic Power? Great name, by the way.
Great player, too. He was one of the first Puerto Rican stars.
The name Vic Power doesn't exactly scream, hey, everybody, I'm from Puerto Rico somehow. It kind of reminds me, you know what it reminds me? It reminds me of when Homer Simpson changes his name to Max Power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if he was Puerto Rican, too, Max Power. Yeah, Vic Power doesn't tell, but here's the thing. He was Puerto Rican, and there's a story behind his name. His parents were Regino and Maximina Peyon.
Okay.
And the mother's maiden name was Pove. but a first-grade teacher who did not speak Spanish thought Maximina just didn't know how to spell her name and that it was Power, and so Power it became. That is the story anyway.
That's insane.
And Regino died when Victor was 13. Now, he didn't really choose to go by Vic Power. He was Victor Peyot Power. The second last name in some Spanish places is the maiden name, so he had both of his parents' names. But in his early 20s, Victor was playing in Canada, and the French Canadians called him La Pelote, which is not a good thing in French.
I don't speak French, so I'm going to believe you.
In Quebec, plot is a slang word for vagina, and the verb pelote is to grope someone. So and they called him La Pelote. And so Vic didn't like all that much, so he just became Vic Power.
I mean, I'd take Vic Power over the other options.
Vic
I mean, it's a no-brainer, and it's a great name.
I'd take Vic Power over just about anything if that was mine.
Vic Power is crazy. But question for you, though. Were there many Puerto Rican players in that era? Were they treated like the African Americans or more like Cubans back in that era?
Well, okay. Well, we remember we talked early in season 1 about Armando Marsan, the first Cuban star. Now, he played back in the 19-teens, and there were Cuban players since then. Someone who you might call Hiram Bithorn, but it's actually Hiram Bithorn, was the first Puerto Rican major leaguer.
Yeah.
And the biggest stadium in Puerto Rico is named after him still. Bithorn came up with the Cubs in 1942.
Hell yeah.
Right? And in 1943, he went 18-12 with a 2.60 ERA. He then spent 2 years in the Navy, and he wasn't so good when he got back. But hey, he was the pioneer.
I mean, you can't take that away from him.
No, you cannot. By the mid-1950s, like 30-something Puerto Ricans had appeared in the major leagues. They're the first real stars, other than Bithorn for one season. The first real stars like Roberto Clemente and Vic Power did not break in until then, until the mid-50s.
So Vic Power was a star?
Oh, yes, indeed. He was a 4-time All-Star. 6 if you count seasons when they played 2 All-Star games, and he was in both of those. In 7 seasons, he got MVP votes, though he never finished better than 9th. And he was the best fielding first baseman in baseball, winning Gold Gloves every year from 1958 to 1964. And the Gold Glove only started in 1957, so he might have won, more had they had them before that.
How was his hitting?
Not bad at all. 284 lifetime.
That's pretty good.
With a high of 319. As many as 19 homers. And he didn't either strike out or walk much, several times having fewer than 20 strikeouts for the whole season, but usually only walking like 30 or 35 times. He put the ball in play, basically, right?
Yeah. Like a Nico Horner type, like just puts it into play.
Yep.
That's the
and
guy.
Take what you get.
Yeah, he's the guy you want when the bases are loaded. Yep. Okay.
He was Power was fast enough to often be a leadoff hitter, and he appeared in at least a few games at every position except pitcher and catcher during his career.
Sounds like a good guy to have in your team.
Well, it was in the field he really shone. He led the league in assists at first base 6 times, double plays turned 3 times. Thing is, Power was a dark-skinned Puerto Rican, and he did face a lot of prejudice playing in the States. This is from his Saber bio. There was little racial prejudice in Puerto Rico, and Power did not realize the extent of the bigotry he faced in the United States.
Yeah.
Here we were all together, he said of his native Puerto Rico. We went to school together, we danced together, a lot of black Puerto Ricans marry a white woman. When I got there, the States, I didn't know what to do. Power often used sarcastic humor to diffuse a racial situation, and I love this bit. They say they didn't call me up because I was going out with white women, said Power. I told them, geez, I didn't know white women were that bad. If I knew that, I wouldn't go out with them.
That's a funny guy. That's a funny guy.
That's a great line.
That's a great line.
I didn't know they were that bad.
I didn't know.
You shouldn't be going out with them. Oh, right. Okay. Sorry, man.
Bad, bro. Right.
Well, I could go on about Vic Power, but I really should finish up Jeff Burroughs.
Yes.
Now, Burroughs followed up his MVP season with 29 homers and 94 RBI in 1975.
That's pretty good.
But his average dipped to 226, a 75-point drop.
Ooh, injury, or why is that?
Well, according to him, he wanted to pull the ball more to hit more homers. So he got into bad swinging habits, dipping his shoulder and uppercutting, and habits which can be hard to correct.
Yeah.
And that continued pretty much the same in 1976, average-wise, but with only 18 homers. And then he and everyone were surprised when he was traded to the Braves for 5 players and $250,000.
I mean, that's a lot for one guy back then.
One guy who's had 2 crappy seasons too.
Yeah, exactly.
Even a former MVP.
It's like here's 5 guys and funny because Five Guys is here in Stockholm now.
Yeah.
Here's Five Guys and cash considerations
Yes.
to the extent of 250,000.
Burroughs was upset about the trade because he just bought a house in Arlington, but upon reflection, he realized playing his home games in a stadium called the Launching Pad might be a good thing.
I mean, it was written in the stars for him. Like,
Well, in 1977, Burroughs was the comeback kid,
Let's
hitting
go.
41 homers, which was more than a quarter of the team's total,
Jeez.
and that was a team that lost 100 games.
Wow.
But then, in 1978, pitchers just stopped giving him anything to hit, and he led the majors with 117 walks, hitting 301 when they did
Yeah.
hit the plate. That was a last big hurrah, though, as 1979 was kind of a repeat of 1975. His back problems came back, and he was platooned in 1980 by manager Bobby Cox.
rest in peace. He actually passed away
Just the other day, yeah. Well, one of the great ones.
for sure.
For sure. And this is, well, he was just getting started back then. Cox and Burroughs did not see eye to eye, though. Cox wanted speed to be the Braves' future.
Yeah.
And some bad blood developed between the two, so Burroughs was gone. First to Seattle, and then Oakland, and a final season in Toronto in
This guy
1985.
was a coach killer. Okay, how did he do with them?
He wasn't bad. He was pretty good. He just wasn't top form Burroughs, and that's what people wanted. Here's the thing, though. In Oakland, he was with Billy Martin again,
Billy Martin's everywhere.
like Roy Kent. And and in Toronto, for his swan song, he was welcomed by Toronto manager Bobby Cox.
Wait, what?
Between stints with the Braves, Cox managed the Blue Jays for 4 years.
And Burroughs was welcome?
He was very welcomed, and he was a pretty good DH. See, the National League didn't have the designated hitter, so when Cox was managing Atlanta, he couldn't just use Burroughs as a DH for his fielding woes.
Yeah.
So yeah, Cox and Burroughs got along great in Toronto, and Burroughs made his only postseason appearance in Game 7 of the ALCS, a pinch hit ground out, which was actually his only postseason at-bat and the final at-bat of his career.
Not a bad career.
Not at all. And that was his career. And that is also it for today on the Time Machine.
You've talked about exactly one slugger of the 1970s today.
I know, and there are at least two more that I really wanted to cover. Come on, we talked about stealing home and Vic Power.
Sure.
And 5 cent, and not just 10 cent beer night, 5 cent beer
5
night.
cent beer night. Yeah. And
So-
how these clubs had to one-up each other for beer night.
Yeah, but I'll talk about the more 70s sluggers in the future.
So is that next time?
I don't think so. I have an idea for a fun little series that you actually inspired, but I'm not going to say what it is.
Okay.
So I'll come back to Sluggers in the 1970s, part 6, at some later date.
They are a lot of fun to talk about.
Every era of baseball history is fun to talk
Yes,
about.
you're right.
All right, everybody. If you want to talk, everybody out there, I'm saying, not all the people in this room, all 2 of them. If you want to talk with us or accuse us of various crimes, please do it at our website, baseballhistorytimemachine.com. And please show us your dedication on Patreon so we can get rich doing this. Just search for Indy Neidell's Baseball History Time Machine there, and you'll see what to do. And I guess I will take us home this week. That is all for today from me, Indy Neidell,
And me, Burns.
and the Baseball History Time Machine.